Welcome everybody to Lessons from the Field. This is a series of interviews that we do with a diverse array of guests, all of whom have a common thread in a passion for pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And today we're really happy to have Pratik Shah with us. Pratik is a 2014 graduate of the UIC College of Pharmacy in our PharmD program. And he currently works for IngenioRx, which is part of CVS Specialty Pharmacy. And I know Pratik is going to tell us more about his experience and career since he graduated. If you watched these before, we have a number of questions that we'll ask Pratik, and he'll provide us his insight, experience, and advice. And this is to the benefit of our students, our recent alumni and friends, and anyone else who might be listening. So Pratik, let's go ahead and get started. And maybe you could just start with, tell us briefly kind of what you've been doing since you graduated.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much, Glenn, for the opportunity and for the kind introduction. So a little bit about myself. So my name is Pratik. I graduated from the UIC College of Pharmacy in 2014. Upon graduation, while I was a student, I actually worked at Target as an intern, like many of you working throughout school, getting that experience. And upon graduation, I ended up working with Walgreens out here in the Elgin Rockford district. I floated around for about 3 months and then took on the role as a pharmacy manager. I was a pharmacy manager for about 4 years at 3 different stores, each one with its own challenges and learning something new along the way. And after 4 years, I was looking for a change, something different outside of retail to really expand my knowledge. So I ended up doing a temp job with OptumRx out in Downers Grove. So I worked in the prior authorization department for about 4 months. And as I was working, I was looking at other opportunities, seeing what's out there. And this opportunity at CVS Specialty came up. So I started with CVS Specialty as a clinical pharmacist in March of 2019, worked as a clinical pharmacist for about 5 months, and then took on the role as a pharmacist supervisor. So I'm been a pharmacist supervisor. That's my current position right now, and been here for almost 1.5 years, and been with the company for almost 2 years now. So that's a little bit about my background.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like quite a journey. So I know our students are always interested in more details about your work life and what it is you do on a day-to-day basis, and maybe a little bit more about what the CVS Specialty Pharmacy Group does.
Yeah, no, great question. So when it comes to CVS specialty pharmacy is a really unique field, dealing with a lot with specialty medications ranging from fertility to oncology, HIV, a whole plethora of different therapies that's growing and expanding each day. For CVS, we actually work out of a network of about 13 locations. We have a location here in Mount Prospect, but we also have locations in the East Coast, the West Coast, down in Florida, and we service all 50 states of America through a mail order system. So what my job is specifically is to monitor my team. So I have a team of 31 pharmacists, and as a mail order pharmacy, our job is to provide that clinical feedback and that clinical knowledge to our patients, to our doctors in a mail order setting. So the unique aspect about it is because we are mail order, we don't see our patients. So we have to kind of create that connection with them and connect that patient pharmacist relationship without actually seeing these members. And I think that's a challenge that in mail order is really unique to it. So with my team, we work on providing those one-on-one consults, those new doses, missed doses. We work with really intricate therapies, not just from the payer aspect, but from the therapy itself. Some of them include hubs, some of them include further verification. And as a supervisor, I also deal with my team and the related IT issues, HR issues, and try to achieve the goals we want to achieve, but also make sure we're getting the clinical outcomes along the way as well.
Great. Well, I mean, with mail order and specialty pharmacy being some of the fastest growing areas of pharmacy practice, it's great to be able to get that experience from you. And I know looking back at your LinkedIn profile and talking to you earlier that you're involved in or working towards your MBA degree. I'm sure that'll come in handy with all of the kind of management responsibilities it sounds like you have too.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of the new things that took up. I have always wanted to go back to school. As dreading as that sounds, I know at the moment I say that, people are like, why would you want to do that? But I had to push myself to get to that point. And my wife, who's a teacher, was really supportive in that too. And I started going back to school. So I started my MBA with the University of Florida a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I'm looking to gain that insight and to develop those managerial skills. And I think it's important to get that on-hand experience, but a lot of things we learn in class and we learn through projects is taking those theories, those ideas, and kind of keeping them organized and expanding on them. And I think so far it's been 3 weeks so far, and I'm surviving, I guess. But
Good.
3 weeks down and a year and I don't know, 48 left, so I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do great. You must be really busy though, and with an important job, but also I know you have a child at home, and so you must be spending a lot of time on it. So good for you. So
Thanks.
I think the next question I was going to ask you is kind of just reflecting on your career so far. What have been the highlights, or what's given you the most satisfaction so far?
I think the biggest highlight and biggest satisfaction is kind of each step along the way. I think it's cliche to say that, hey, like there's one particular part of my career where I say, oh, I learned the most from this, I got the most. I think retail itself has been a big part of my career so far, as it is for many people coming from pharmacy school. And yeah, it has its days. I do admit that it has its pluses, its minuses, but I think the end of the day, we're learning so much from it, from being able to work with people, being able to manage time and organize and find out your priorities. When I recruit pharmacists for my team and I interview them, a lot of them, about 70% of my team comes from retail. And I think the reason is because they have so much of a depth of understanding that patient interaction. They understand when situations are not going well, how do we adapt to it? How do we problem solve on the spot? And I think that's one of the big things we get from retail that a lot of people kind of oversee, especially when they're in that situation, saying, what am I getting from this? I'm putting all these hours in, I'm just kind of working in like a robotic function. But I think when they step out of that box and they kind of reflect and say, hey, what did we learn from it? I think a lot of the more successful pharmacists I work with have a really solid retail background. And I think that has helped me along the way too.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, sometimes it's hard to reflect on, what it is that, you gain from a job, and what some of the experiences are that you can take forward, because you might not see them. But I think, it's really a good point. The communication skills, the ability to prioritize patient problems, and all of that is stuff that can really be valuable in many other situations. So, Pratik, maybe looking back on your time at school at UIC, is there a particular activity or experience or course that you would advise our students to pay more attention to help prepare them? Or like if you had to do it over, what would you kind of, what were some of the things that you would do differently maybe?
I think when it comes to doing it over again, again, not a dread of having to go back to school, but I think when it comes to doing it over again, I think it's kind of putting that perspective in mind of not everything is going to be requiring your complete attention and devotion. I think as students, we are really stuck in that mindset, partly good, but partly not, that we are having to get straight A's in all these classes. We have to be the best at the role we're taking on with extracurriculars. When I go to work at my retail job, a hospital job, I have to be the best of the best. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on our students. And as individuals, we strive to be the best, but we need to also look at what our priority is, what's our interest, and really delve into that. Because I think what benefited me when I was a student and got me through the 4 years was the fact that I looked at what really excited me. I loved my leadership roles, being involved with AFA, being involved with APHA, and just kind of jumping in and saying, hey, what can I do more? What am I learning from this? What excites me? And not saying the clinical aspect doesn't excite me, but it was a little bit different. Well, I would go through my PDAC class, I would take the exams, I learn the material, and then it would be second nature, where it wouldn't come up again. And I would kind of see it in the retail setting and when the NAPTEX came along. But I think when it came to, for me particularly, the business classes, which had more of an impact, saying, hey, you know what, it's kind of interesting to see how this kind of relates. How does this profit and margins and assets and all these type of things play a part in pharmacy? Seeing it in real life and hearing it on the news is one thing, but then when you kind of put it in perspective of, I'm working in a retail pharmacy, how come we can't have all the drugs that we need just sitting on our shelf? Well, there's a charge to it. We're paying for inventory, we're managing it. We just can't keep it. And I think that part was kind of interesting to me, and that's why it kind of spurred me in that direction.
Well, that is great to hear, given that I taught in some of those classes, and most of the time I was pretty sure the students couldn't give a rip about it, but it is important stuff, and I'm glad to hear that.
We got a couple here and there,
using
but that's okay.
So thank you for that. So I think I know the answer to this next question, because you're doing an MBA. You've moved around in some of your jobs to get more experience, to better prepare yourself. But the career in pharmacy is one where you always have to continue to expand your knowledge and expertise. There's new products coming on the market. There's new ways of doing things, and we're always having to keep up to date. So what is your advice for folks on how to continue to do that? How do you stay relevant? How do you stay on top of your game in terms of your knowledge base and also your experience and so forth?
Yeah, so great question. I think the big focus of that and the cliche aspect is reading, like really continuously update that knowledge base, like checking out those magazines that come out and listening to CEs, not just to hit your minimum requirements, but just for topics that interest you. I know for me particularly, there was a CE about the COVID vaccine and the new rules and regulations and stuff came out. I don't need to do it for my CE requirement, but it kind of spurred my interest, and that's kind of how I pursued it. But I think as pharmacists graduate, we kind of put that mentality of, oh, I graduated this year, I did my NAPLEX, my MPJE, that's it, I'm done, I don't have to read it again. That is true, but to a certain extent, I think that expansion of knowledge is what kind of sets apart those that keep growing, keep expanding and saying, hey, what's that next step? What's that next role? And the pharmacists that just say, hey, you know what, I'm good with my 9-to-5 job right now. I don't want to move anymore. I don't want to do anything. But I think that expansion of knowledge is key to be able to make yourself more valuable, not just as a pharmacist, but in a pharmacist in this job market, which many of you look around and you see all these pharmacy schools, you see where the market is, you see where the COVID pandemic has had an impact. And you kind of, the moments you step back and say, hey, is this what I want? Is this what I want to be doing for the next 20 or 30 years? And if not, what skills or what steps am I taking to make myself more profitable, to make myself more of an asset to other companies?
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, related to that though, and we talked a little bit already, but you decided to go back and do your MBA.
Yeah.
Is it, so what may help me understand what what's going through your mind in making that decision, and then what do you see what the value of that going forward in your career? What's it going to do for you? And I think that'll help our students who might consider doing the same, either while they're in the PharmD program, because we do have the joint degree, or after they graduate. And I know a lot of students think about these kinds of things. So maybe a little bit more on that.
Yeah, no. So when it came to the MBA, so I always had a little inkling more towards the business side than the clinical aspect. And I always thought about doing an MBA and pursuing that route. And I remember telling my wife one day saying, you know what, Kate, I'm gonna do an MBA. And the supportive wife she is, she was like, yeah, I know, you've been talking about it for years. Like, just do it now. Like, just stop talking about it and do it. And I was like, okay, I do it. I think my genuine interest was the fact that I wanted to really expand my horizon, get a little bit more of an insight. As we are in our jobs right now, we know our jobs and might know about 2 feet outside of those jobs in the resources we take upon. But I think I wanted to make sure saying, hey, in this job market, in the types of jobs and roles I want to take on in the future, do I have what it takes? And a big recommendation I have to everyone is kind of looking and saying, hey, look what the job market is right now. Look at LinkedIn, look at Indeed, and say, hey, what jobs are out there? How is this job market landscape changing? And that just not only applies to pharmacy, but applies to many fields. And say, is this the job that I want? Or if the job I want is a director or an assistant or something of that sort, do I have those skills to get that job? And if not, what's stopping you? Or what do you need to get to that point? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? And knowing that at the end of the day, with this MBA, my intent is to be able to make myself more of a valuable candidate in the job market. Say, maybe 10 years from now, when my daughter Shreya is off to grade school and middle school, and I'm having a little bit more free time, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for that. What are the challenges and what other roles can I take on? And am I ready to take on those roles?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Great, great reflection there for folks that might be
Mm-hmm.
listening. You know, Pratik, maybe it just wrap this up. And this has been fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
No, of course.
Any tips for the audience, whether it's students or early graduates, on, I mean, you've already given us a lot, but any other advice that you have, either for work or just like work-life balance? I mean, you're obviously balancing a lot. So any advice you have as we wrap up, that would be great.
Yeah, so I think the best advice would be give is realizing that all of this is in a really small part of your life. And the second part is prioritizing yourself. And it's easier said than done. But what I do is kind of every Sunday night when I'm sitting in front of TV and my wife's next to me and we're kind of watching TV or watching football, and I kind of look at my week and say, hey, like what's my priority for this week? Is it work? Do I have a major deadline coming up? Is it school? Do I have midterms coming up? Or is it family time? Like maybe my wife is off on Friday because of Institute Day. So hey, maybe I can move some stuff around and have a little more extra time with her on Friday, or spend the day with the in-laws or the parents on Saturday. And I think on a weekly basis, trying to line that up. I think that's a big focus, an easier task once you get started to do and prepare yourself, because it makes the rest of the week a whole lot easier. Takes about an hour or so to line that up, but then the rest of the week you kind of know what to expect and where your focus should be, because like I mentioned earlier, you can't get everything. You just gotta pick and choose at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that. That is great advice. Something that you can actually do, you know, think about each week and plan ahead, and make sure that you accomplish some of your goals in terms of your time. And so
exactly.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Pratik. This has been great catching up with you, and great advice for the folks listening, and really happy to see you doing so well and being successful, is which we like to see from all of our graduates. So